Hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump has stated that he may invoke the Insurrection Act to legitimize his deployment of the National Guard troops to major American cities. The US government shutdown continues for a seventh straight day as yet more bids to resolve the shutdown fail at the Senate. President Trump has stated that there will be layoffs if the shutdown is not resolved soon. After a successful first day of negotiations in Egypt, Sharm el-Sheikh, Israel and Hamas representatives will sit with mediators for a second round of talks today. German Foreign Minister has stated that it is up to Hamas now and has demanded that the first phase of Trump's plan be implemented this week itself. Swedish activist Greta Thunberg has arrived in Greece and has slammed Western governments, stating that they failed to do their part in securing aid for the people of Gaza. US House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has stated that there's radio silence from the White House as the government shutdown continues. Memorials and vigils have been organized in Israel and across the world, marking 2 years since the deadly October 7th attack that kicked off hostilities between Hamas and Israel. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has landed in Washington, D.C. ahead of his scheduled talks with US President Donald Trump. These talks are expected to center on America's tariffs, which are hitting the Canadian economy hard. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has stated that his administration has foiled a major false flag attack on the American embassy in Caracas. He has also said that the US has appreciated this initiative to inform them. All right, viewers, those were the headlines in our top focus. A Brazilian activist and several European lawmakers are now accusing Israel of mistreatment of all those who were detained after the Gaza aid flotilla was intercepted last week. Brazilian professor Nicolas Calabres has arrived in Rio de Janeiro and described the Israeli Navy's boarding of the flotilla as violent, with armed soldiers seizing humanitarian supplies meant for Gaza, including water and baby food. Listen in to what he had to say.
Foi um momento onde a gente foi interceptado. A interceptação foi completamente violenta, né, com fuzis, mais de 15 soldados da Marinha Israelense abordando e entrando nos nossos navios, apontando para a gente com fuzis, armas muito armamentosentes e com os rostos cobertos, encapuzados, né? Ao melhor estilo do terrorismo que o Estado de Israel é um Estado terrorista que efetuou essa interceptação. E roubaram toda a ajuda humanitária, água, alimento para bebês, alimento para as pessoas que estão passando fome, foi roubado pelo Estado de Israel e não permitiram que chegasse o povo que está passando fome.
In Athens, French MEP Rima Hassan and MP Francois Piquemal has also condemned the detention of the activists, alleging that they were beaten, denied legal and medical access and forced to sleep on floors of jail cells in overcrowded conditions. Piquemal has called their arrest a violation of international law and has urged sanctions against Israel. Israel, meanwhile, has deported more than 340 of the 479 activists detained from the global Sumud flotilla, which it says violated the naval blockade of Gaza, a blockade that Israel claims is necessary for security reasons. Let's in fact listen in to what Rima Hassan had to say.
On a beaucoup de choses à dénoncer, je n'aurai pas le temps de détailler ici le traitement qui nous a été réservé par le régime israélien. On a été pour certains battus, moi j'ai été battue au moment de me mettre dans le fourgon par 2 policiers et c'est le cas pour de nombreuses d'autres personnes qui peuvent témoigner plus tard. Ensuite on a été placé dans la prison du Negev qui est une prison à haute sécurité. On a été parfois 13, 15 par cellule, donc même pas sur des lits mais sur des matelas au sol. On a manqué vraiment de tout. Il y a des personnes qui étaient âgées avec nous.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has lashed out at Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg, calling her a troublemaker and suggesting that she has anger management issues. Now, speaking to reporters at the White House, Trump has stated that Thunberg had forgotten about the environment and accused her of shifting focus after she joined the global Sumud aid flotilla towards Gaza. All right, viewers, more news coming in from the Middle East. The Israeli army has reported detecting a projectile fired from Gaza, coinciding with the second anniversary of the October 7th attack in 2023. Injuries were, however, reported. Sirens sounded in the border areas as precautions were taken. Meanwhile, in separate developments, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin on a phone call to discuss the situation in the Middle East, including US President Donald Trump's proposal to end the Gaza conflict. The two leaders also discussed the Iranian nuclear program and regional stabilization in Syria. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Ali Mohammed Abushbak, independent Palestinian researcher, joining us from Cairo in Egypt. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Firstly, I'd like to address what exactly the activists aboard the global Sumud flotilla have now been alleging, whether from Brazil, whether from Turkey, or even Greta Thunberg from Sweden. They've all alleged mistreatment in Israeli jails. They've said that the jails were overcrowded, and in fact, the Israeli military, the Navy in particular, came and seized all the aid, including water and baby food that was meant to be given to Palestinians in Gaza who are suffering a famine as per the United Nations. Do you think their countries should move against Israel in the international court, and whether this will in fact take place, since, as they've put forth, international law has been violated?
Thank you for having me. The thing is about the activist flotilla Sumud. According to media report, they are insulted in Israeli jails and prisons. So it was a terrible situation for them and mentally disturbed. And several of media reported that how much Israel dehumanizing the activists, and according to them, also Israel intercept them in international water, so that's violated the international law and the principle of the international law and the moral. So I guess now yesterday they are the day before yesterday, Spain, they are deciding to go to the court and also give a punishment for Israel, because as you know, Israel is acting impunity, and as above of the international law and the moral of the humanitarian right. So the thing is nowadays make it more tough, and what I'm afraid of, next time it will happen again and again, because Israel continuously intercept the flotilla and the advocacy of a flotilla in international water. So that created the situation more incredible, and that's, exacerbated the situation on the ground and the relationship with Israel. There is a wave, outrage wave, the entire the world, and there is a several of protest against the Israelis' action, against the with regard the flotilla and the activists that's created, impacted the Israeli reputation in entire the international audience. Nowadays, Israel in tough place with regard its reputation, and also that's we have seen a several of footage how much the people and the international the public opinion, they are lambasting Israel's active and lambasting the Israeli politician. We have seen a several of footage that released that Israelis minister, they are insulting the activists in jail, and they are going through to code them in Israeli's code, which is considered illegal. So these civilians, they didn't pose any danger or attack to Israel. So Israel has no any justify for keep them or hold them in Israeli jail or insulting them. Especially they are civilians, they are unarmed, so they didn't pose any danger to Israel. I mean, now the public opinion, there is an outrage wave. I mean, on the ground, we have seen a several of protests in several of countries. They are supporting the flotilla and supporting the activists. So in Netherlands, it was unprecedented protest in Netherlands and in Australia, in Sweden, and in several of countries that it was unprecedented protest, and it was a massive protest. Nowadays, we are in the second anniversary of this attack. The civilians on the ground, the civilian Gazan civilians, they are shelterless. They are without any tent. So that the winter is coming, and the harsh winter is coming in Gaza because it's a coastal area. So that will create a humanitarian situation. I mean, incredible and crisis. It will exacerbate it more and more. Especially there is a lack of food, there is a lack of medicine, there is a lack of essential element of the life or everything. So I was talking to several of civilians on the ground. They are asking for tent. They are sleeping on the ground without any shelter, without any home, without any tent, even sleep on the I mean on the street, so without anything. So that's make it more incredible, and the situation is can't believe. Uh, yes.
Indeed, sir. I request you to stay on with us. We're tracking some other really important developments from the Middle East. Now, we're learning that Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai has stated that Iran has no plans to hold talks on nuclear issues with France, Britain and Germany following their move to trigger the snapback mechanism to reimpose UN sanctions. He's in fact stated that Iran would decide on diplomacy whenever the government feels it can be fruitful, stressing that any negotiations must serve the country's national interests first. Now remember, the E3 powers, the European trio, in coordination with Washington, invoked the snapback mechanism in August after the UN Security Council failed to extend sanctions relief in September. Remember, Russia and China were in fact looking at giving Iran a 6-month period in order to ensure that talks continue to take place. However, that bid failed.
ما از هر ابزاری که لازم باشه از ابزارهای دیپلماتیک برای اثبات حقانیت جمهوری اسلامی ایران و برای اینکه جامعه بین‌المللی رو مجاب بکنیم از پذیرش آثار و تبعات مترتب بر این اقدام غیرقانونی خودداری بکنند پرهیز نمی‌کنیم. در این مرحله ما متمرکز هستیم بر بررسی آثار و تبعات ناشی از اقدام سه کشور اروپایی و آمریکا. البته طبیعی است که دیپلماسی به مفهوم تداوم تماس‌ها و رایزنی‌ها ادامه داشته باشه.
Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Ali Mohammed Abushbak. Now, this is a very important statement. It's come after Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi had stated that the Cairo agreement is no longer valid, considering the fact that snapback sanctions are now in place. This agreement is basically outlining what the IAEA can monitor in Iran or not. What are the implications now that Iran has made it very clear that it will not be considering this agreement and the framework around IAEA's monitoring of the nuclear sites?
So the thing is, any negotiation with Western, it would be like absurdity negotiation with Europe, because during the Israelis' attack in Iran and backed by America, that it was Iran negotiating with America with regard their nuclear weapon and about their ability with regard this also missile. But what happened on the ground, that the table turned upside down against Iran, and there is no one support, despite Iran was committed to its term in the agreement with the G7, if you remember. So the thing says has no guarantee if they are going to negotiate or no. Iran reached to the I mean, acknowledge that there is nothing will save them if they will be a peaceful nuclear program, or it will be defensive nuclear program. Nothing will help them, and there is no guarantee to stop the Israelis attack or American attack, and especially during the war with Iran. If you remember, the Western country was also supporting the Israelis attack or silent with the Israelis attack. So it meaningless to be in joining with them again. And nowadays, Iran looking for looking for any guarantee to save their security. And we have witnessed that last time, the 11 days war with Israel and Iran, that couldn't hold. And despite the there is a several of things on the ground happened. Also, the investigator for nuclear weapon, they are confirming that it's Iran nuclear weapon. It's a peaceful program. So the things nowadays, Iran in I guess reached to that there is a no guarantee, there is a no trust with this community, with Western community and America and Israel. So I guess nowadays Iran is going to enhance its ability for coming times, and it's going to not negotiate up to reach to that 0 point. I mean, to reach to the end. That's what I do believe. And even their alliance with Russia or with also China couldn't save them or couldn't help them. So the thing is nowadays it's about the double standard. We are talking about this term and about how Iran was in deep suffering and the civilians suffered from the Israelis attack without any outcome, without any obtain for both sides. What happened? They consider that the Israel consider that it's destroyed the ability of nuclear ability for Iran, but on the ground there is no confirmation about it. So I guess that war, it was a zero-sum game, and without any obtain for both of sides, will see what will happen. And also, I guess nowadays, as I mentioned, Iran is not going to trust again, and sacrifice itself for negotiating and for talk and diplomatic term, and we'll see what will happen and these things. So yeah, I guess Iran took a hard lesson from the last escalation of violence during the 11-day wars.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking our time, sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting away our focus from the Middle East towards East Asia. Now, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has congratulated Russian President Vladimir Putin on his birthday, expressing confidence in eternal friendship and continued allied relationships between the two countries. Kim Jong-un has in fact assured Vladimir Putin that North Korea will fully support what he calls the just struggle of the Russian people for defending their national sovereignty, territorial integrity and security interests, and also remain faithful to the implementation of the interstate treaty between North Korea and Russia, regarding it as a fraternal duty to do so in the future as well. Kim Jong-un concluded by saying that Pyongyang and Moscow will always stand together in their friendship will be immortal. The Russian president is marking his 73rd birthday. As Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has stated that many international phone calls to Putin have been slated. With us on the broadcast is Dr. Tomohiko Taniguchi, former advisor to late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, joining us from Tokyo. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. At the outset, I wanted to understand from you, what is North Korea looking to gain, especially in strategic terms, by backing Russia's war with Ukraine?
Writing a letter and sending it to Vladimir Putin costs nothing. It is the cheapest sort of diplomatic endeavor and able to show to the world and to Vladimir Putin that North Korea is a formidable power, if you like, and could stand on a par with the nuclear giant of Russia. So that's the aim. Pragmatically speaking, not substantially anything has happened between the two nations.
All right, and I wanted to also bring into perspective, since you've pointed out that North Korea is a nuclear power, Kim Jong-un has made it very clear recently that North Korea will not denuclearize. He's in fact pointed out recent exercises that have taken place between Seoul and Washington, the Ulchi Freedom Shield, as well as the trilateral drills between South Korea, US and Japan. He stated that nuclear weapons and the program serves as a deterrent against US presence in the region. In your assessment, where do you think this armament and this continuous quest for increasing nuclear weapons will lead the Korean Peninsula tensions towards?
North Korea is certainly escalating tensions by continuing to build nuclear arsenal. The flip side of the coin is that in South Korea, people have started to argue more in a louder voice the need to go nuclear armed themselves. So it is very much a dangerous competition. What's important here is that you're looking at three nations in a row, Russia, North Korea, China, that use the same common language of power and might. Power and might are the lingua franca among themselves. So the lesson to be learned is that you need to be strong yourself. South Korea, Japan, the United States, the Philippines, and those nations must build their own national power, economic, military, diplomatic, all means, to counterbalance those three nations that know nothing but power.
Indeed, and speaking of China, we've recently seen Kim Jong-un attend what they called the 80th anniversary of victory in World War II, that is China's parade. We've recently seen the Chinese Foreign Minister, Wang Yi, hold talks with his North Korean counterpart Cho Son-hui in Beijing. We're also now learning that China's Premier Li Qiang will go to North Korea this week, which is the highest level visit by a Chinese leader since 2019. Interestingly, after Kim Jong-un met Xi Jinping, the readout did not mention any bid for denuclearization, something that China has been doing so every time the leaders have been meeting. The official press releases issued by both countries omitted any mention of denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, which was a notable departure from past statements. How is Japan reading into all of this?
Long gone are the days when 6 nations lived under the fantasy that continued negotiations would somehow lead North Korea to abandon its nuclear program. The reality, therefore, at the moment, is that we must live with those 3 nations that have gone nuclear armed already. The path that Japan should seek will not change so much as the path that we have taken, Japan has taken, namely to reinvest and continue to do so in the alliance relationship with trusted partners like the United States, Australia, and the Philippines, and so on and so forth. And I would very much like India to play a role as a firmly developed democratic power. But that said, we should consider the new reality, that is that North Korea has developed confidence, has developed caliber in the international community. Never before has Pyongyang been so confident about their international standing. And the words and the way in which Kim Jong-un put together those words reflect his confidence.
Indeed, and not just in this term as well. We've seen Kim Jong-un being rather confident in rebuffing an olive branch that South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has been extending. In fact, Lee Jae-myung met Donald Trump at the Oval Office. They discussed the possibility of Trump-Kim Jong-un meeting taking place as well. In your assessment, what are the chances that this could take place?
Not in the immediate future, because President Trump is focused on the Middle East situation. Soon he will come to Japan to meet the new Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, and he's got to start a very good relationship with Japan before facing up to some of those leaders, Kim Jong-un or Xi Jinping. Donald Trump will feel it imperative for him to develop his own connections with some of the Asian leaders, including the new Japanese Prime Minister. So we're not looking at the time frame of something like 2 or 3 months. If that happens, it's going to be long away, in the time frame of, say, 6 months and so on and so forth. But in order for him to meet Kim Jong-un, he cannot repeat the failure that he has done in the past. The 2 meetings that he had with Kim Jong-un have brought forward no tangible fruit.
Indeed, and North Korea has recently deployed special assets against South Korea and the United States. Now, they maintain that this is in deterrence to the fact that U.S. stations about 28,500 troops in South Korea, and North Korea claims this is to fend off military threats, and they've pointed out to, as I mentioned earlier, the recent trilateral drills that has taken place. They denounced these drills as rehearsals for an invasion. Meanwhile, we do know that these are more defensive in nature, considering the fact that North Korea is a nuclear armed country. What do you make of this increasingly stronger rhetoric that we've been seeing Kim Jong-un adopt in recent days?
That may sound strong for us, but for someone that's been looking at North Korea over the last 50 years, it's not the strongest. North Korea has been very much good at adopting horrifying language, and we shouldn't be so much scared about by that.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World, sharing your perspective on these very crucial developments. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus to some breaking news we're tracking on the broadcast. Indirect talks between Israel and Hamas in Egypt have been described as positive so far. Sources close to the Palestinian negotiating team has now reported this. The first round lasted about 4 hours, and discussions are meanwhile scheduled to resume around midday in the Egyptian resort town of Sharm el-Sheikh. This is, of course, the latest that we're tracking on the broadcast. Donald Trump has, in fact, highlighted that it is very likely that the first phase of his 20-point plan would be implemented very, very soon. However, there are some parts of the plan, some elements of the plan that it has been contested by Hamas. Hamas has, up until now, while it's agreed for the hostage prisoner exchange and the cessation of hostilities, it has not agreed to disarm so far. Additionally, Hamas has also agreed for the formation of a technocratic Palestinian board, but has remained mum so far on Trump's proposed board of peace. Remember, the plan had included the International Board of Peace that would oversee the activities of the technocratic Palestinian Authority in post-war Gaza. But this team is proposed to be led by Trump and Tony Blair. However, Hamas has remained mum on this so far. But up until now, breaking news coming in, sources are reporting that indirect talks between Israel and Hamas in Egypt up until now have been positive so far. Remember, the first round of discussions lasted for about 4 hours, and the second round is slated to commence very, very soon. Shifting focus to more updates coming in, El Salvador's Ministry of Education has banned the use of gender-inclusive language in public schools through a memorandum signed by Education Minister Carla Trigueros, prohibiting terms such as amigue, nine, and nostalgic that the government labeled as distortions of Spanish linked to gender ideology. President Nayib Bukele has reposted the directive on social media, reinforcing the administration's stance and applying the measure to over 5,000 public schools nationwide. In fact, their Minister Carla Trigueros, a military captain and physician appointed in August, has promoted discipline and traditional norms in education, including uniform policies and courtesy rules. Here's what the people of El Salvador have had to say about this move.
No, pues para mí está súper bien eso de la ideología de género. Está perfecto, porque yo creo que las cosas Dios las creó como tienen que ser. Así que por mí está súper bien.
A nivel de derecho internacional se violenta una serie de normas. El lenguaje de género lo que hace es reconocer nuestra diversidad, reconocer la diversidad que es humana y que es humana por milenios, que es diversa desde siglos y no únicamente en los momentos actuales.
Decir cortarse el pelo, decir buenos días, eso no cambia el sentido de la importancia de tener un sistema educativo que responda a las realidades del país. El sistema educativo salvadoreño es precario.
All right, viewers, with that, it's a wrap on this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.